He te iwi tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome to this Matariki seminar, where we will be exploring Matariki. What is Matariki? What are the traditional narratives around Matariki? How to view Matariki, when to view Matariki, and we'll be talking about Matariki in terms of its association to time, and also the upcoming Matariki holiday that we will begin celebrating from next year. Nō reira, tēnei te mihi nui kia koutou katoa. Just want to thank you all for joining on today. And so, this seminar, we're going to start with a karakia, or an incantation that is associated with Matariki and the stars in the sky, and also show a quick clip about how Matariki gets its name.
Ko wakaro te rā tapu tau puru ai ho te rangi ti hore te rangi waruhia ki a mātou koe ki te kete ata ne homai hei tohu moto na matu i te rangi. Tā tai tia rā ti whai a ki runga rā ki a Matariki ki a tutahi ki a rehua ki a takurua ki a tautoru. Ki a whanui ki a puanga ki a Pohutukawa, te rangi ki a marere o tonga ki a tari ao ki a whakahunuku ki a whakahurangi. Ki a kōpū ki a pare ārau ki a taumatakuku ki a te kokota ki a whiti kaupeka ki a mari ao. Ki a hotu i te hirangi ki a pia wai ki a o tamara kau ki no Whetū tapu o te tau. Ringi hia i teke teko te ika nui o te rangi ka ngaro ki runga rāti he Maori ora. Manawa mai e te putanga o Matariki, manawa mai e te ariki o te rangi, manawa mai e te mātahi o te tau.
In the beginning, Sky Father Rangi Nui and Earth Mother Pohutukawa lay in a close embrace with their many sons between them. For eons they lay within the confinement of an unbreakable bond, or so it seemed. But within the shroud of darkness festered a rebellion that threatened to tear them apart. The sons of Rangi and Papa had gathered in secret. He kaupapa kei te haere, te wehenga o Rangi rawa ko Papa. There was much bickering amongst the brothers, but in the end, all but one was in agreement. Tawhiri, god of the winds and storms, did not approve of the separation and vowed revenge. With the help of his brothers, Tane separated their parents. Using his powerful legs, Tane thrust his father up into the heavens, causing an almighty explosion that resounded across the cosmos. Deaf to the anguish of their suffering parents, the brothers reveled in their freedom, but it was not what they expected. It was an expanse of dark and cold emptiness that quickly filled with a great flood of their parents' tears. The brothers were miserable and cold in their newfound freedom. Amidst the rain and from the darkness, lightning flashed. A figure of dread emerged. It was Tawhiri. The world fell before Tawhiri and his wind children, who were intent on one simple purpose: revenge. One by one, the brothers were defeated by Tawhiri. First Tane, then Tangaroa. Eventually, only a defiant Tūmatauenga, god of war and humanity, remained. An epic fight ensued, a clash of titans. Two was twisted in the air and slammed back into the ground, followed by a lightning bolt that two caught and hurled back at Tawhiri. Tawhiri launched a continuous stream of wind and lightning. thunder resounded, the ground heated and cracked beneath them. Tu heaved mightily against Tawhiri, his legs locked on the earth, and slowly but surely he advanced against his brother Tawhiri. Quicker than the eye could see and the mind could comprehend, Tu reached out and caught Tawhiri Matea. With all his strength and might, Tu smashed Tawhiri repeatedly into the ground. Tawhiri Matea was defeated. However, Tawhiri Matea, vowing to never let his brothers forget, had one final act of defiance. Clawing out his eyes in anguish and grief, he crushed them in his hands and cast the shards into the heavens. As if still possessing sight, Tawhiri turned his hollow gaze to Tu Matauenga, uttering one final warning.
Know this, I will attack you and your children forever. I will rain down chaos and destruction. I will have my vengeance. Karanaki with the Matea Taku Matua. You and yours will never escape me. Every time you look to the skies, you will see the Mata of the Ariki, Tawhiri Matea, Matariki, and remember, when you gaze upon our Father, my eyes will look down on you and remind you of what you have done.
So this lecture and this seminar is called Matariki te Whetū o te Tau, or Matariki the Star of the Year or the Star of the Season. And that clip there was a version of how Matariki gets its name and the origins of the cluster of Matariki that we see in the night sky. And in this seminar, we're going to be exploring a number of elements and aspects about Matariki. Now, it would be really wrong for me just to launch straight into that without giving you some sense of understanding or an idea of how Māori believe all the objects, all the astronomical objects came to be and how they come to the sky. So I'm going to show this last clip, and this clip talks about the origins of the sun, the moon, the stars, and all of the other objects that make up Te Whānau Marama, or the family of light.
Facing a world shrouded in perpetual darkness, Tāne knew that the second union of his parents, known as Te Whānau Marama, the family of light, held the key to the illumination of their world. The first union of Rangi and Papa, called Te Tūtutu Kaurewa, produced Tāne and the other supreme gods. From the second came Tangotango and Wainui. Tangotango is the black space between the stars, dark matter, theoretical subatomic particles, and Wainui is personified in all bodies of water, including the ocean, lakes, rivers, and streams. Tangotango and Wainui's union produced the sun, the moon, the stars, and the lesser-known light children, Hinatore, Parikoikoi, and Hineroamua. It was Tangotango who built the very first whare in this world, called Hui Te Rangiora, and adorned it with his children. The sun and moon shone from the apex of the inner posts. Hinatore and the other smaller lights took up the back wall. The stars were placed in meticulous patterns that adorned the tukutuku panels on the sides of the house. The origin of tukutuku traces its beginnings to these original panels. The intricate placement of the stars on these tukutuku would form the basis for the many constellations now in our skies today. Ka karanga tāne ki tana taina. How brightly gleam the children of light. And Tangotango asked, "For what purpose do you require them?" Tāne replied, to relieve our darkness, to adorn our father, and let light shine across the breast of our mother. Although Wainui was reluctant to hand over her children, both she and Tangotango were eventually persuaded by the eloquent words of Tane. To carry the children of light, Tane wove 3 baskets into which he places the sun, the moon, and the stars. Now on a mission, Tane calls to Tamarereti, the navigator and captain of Matariki, a waka capable of celestial travel. They first traversed the mighty ocean until they reached the point where the sea meets the horizon. This point is called Te Pai Wai o Te Rangi, and from there launched Matariki into the heavens. Upon reaching the zenith of the sky, they released their anchor, Te Mahutonga, commonly known as the Southern Cross. Tane then sets about arranging the cosmos. Tane started by placing into the sky the smaller of the light children, but their feeble light had little effect on the darkness. So Tane then pulled out some of the big players, such as Rehua and Tautoru. He arranged these stars into the many intricate patterns inspired from the tukutuku panels of the walls of Huiterangiora, but still the darkness remained. With the light problem still looming, Tane decided to prematurely celebrate the magnificence of his work thus far. He placed the basket of stars at his feet and performed a vigorous haka. In his over-exuberance, he accidentally kicked the kete, scattering the remaining stars across the universe, which is why some stars are in patterns and others are not. When you look upon the vastness of the Milky Way and how it stretches across the sky, you will see a dark and dense grouping of stars. This is the inside of the kete having been tipped upside down, with the stars spilling out on both sides. Just like a giant fish being tipped out of its basket and all its scales glittering above, hence the name Te Kete Nui a Tane, the great basket of Tane. Most frustrating, though, was the world remained in relative darkness. So Tane placed the moon in the sky, thinking that the ataro or glow of the moon would change their fortunes. But alas, no. Tane looked into the kete and said to the sun, "E tama, you are my last hope." And with that hurled Te Ra upwards and onto the chest of Rangi. The world was instantly transformed into a world of light. Kaputa, kaputa ki te whaiao, ki te ao maraman.
So, as we've just seen, the family of light, or Te Whānau Marama, is the origins of all light that exists in the world. And they are the children of Tangotango and Wainui, and we have the sun, the moon, the stars, Hinatore, Parikoikoi, and Hinerauamua. And it was Tane who took these objects into the sky and gave us the cosmos, gave us the lights that we see above our heads at night time, and gave us month with the moon and day and night with the position and the motion of the sun. So we're here to talk about Matariki. And Matariki is the Pleiades. That's its most common name right throughout the world, is the Pleiades. And it is the world's earliest and best recorded group of stars in the night sky. And this is an image here of a 20,000-year-old cave painting, which is from southern France. And you can see in that cave painting there's a bull, and just above the shoulder of the bull there's a cluster of stars. Now that is the Pleiades. And the other image there is a star disk that's a few thousand years old. It was found in Germany, and it shows the sun, the moon, and those cluster of stars there that are the Pleiades. Now in other parts of the world, here in Asia, We understand in Japan it is Subaru, the name of the cluster of the Pleiades. It's also in China, the earliest astronomical record, again a few thousand years old, refers to the blossom stars, and the Pleiades are the blossom stars. In Europe, there are a number of interpretations. The Vikings called it Freya's hens or Freya's chicks, and there we see an image of Freya with her children being drawn across the night sky in a chariot pulled by two cats. I'm not too sure what that's about, but that's the one European version. Also, its observation in the morning sky would coincide with the lighting of fires and dancing around a pole during the month of May, which is the origins of the Maypole festival. In the Middle East, it had a number of connections, again, to bovines or cows. Mul, it was called in other parts of the Middle East. The Egyptians knew it as Nit or Neith, which was associated with fertility and has a connection to cows. In the Americas, in South America in particular, it was the head of this massive cosmic snake. And if it appeared bright and spread far apart in the morning sky, it was a sign that you were going to have a very productive season. And it was hard to read and clustered close together in the winter. It was a sign that was going to be a very lean winter, very similar to how Maori view the star cluster. And in Australia, it was 7 women who ran away from 7 men and turned themselves into stars and went into the sky. And the most well-known version of the Pleiades is the Greek version, and they are the 7 daughters of Atlas and Paleon, and that's how we get the phrase the 7 sisters. Now, these 7 sisters were beautiful, and Zeus, the ruling god within Greek mythology, wanted to take every one of these daughters as a wife, and they ran away from him and they were turned into a flock of doves and placed in the sky. And one of the early translations of the Pleiades means a flock of doves, but there they are in the night sky. And 20,000 years ago, they were pictured above the shoulder of a bull in a cave in southern France, and today the cluster of Pleiades exists within the shoulder of the bull Taurus. So they're still in that position in our modern understanding of the night sky, and in particular our constellations. Now, we have a look at this image. It shows how Matariki, or the name for Pleiades, is spread not only throughout Polynesia, but also throughout Melanesia and Micronesia, so right across the Pacific. From the Marshall Islands to Easter Island to the Marquesas, down here to Aotearoa, they are called Matariki. Or a version of Matariki in other islands, Matali'i, Matariki, Mataliki, Matari. There are a number of names associated with this cluster right across this expanse of ocean. And here we have the names, the 9 names within the cluster of Matariki, or in the cluster of Pleiades, as were recorded and marked by the Greeks. Now, we don't see Matariki in this fashion here in Aotearoa. We see it turned up the other way. And this is one of the important parts of Matariki, in a way that every year we seem to take photos of a northern hemisphere image of the star cluster and put it up in terms of our celebrations or to promote Matariki, and quite often it's upside down. So we won't see it like this. We'll actually see it this way around. And here are the 9 names that I have within my cluster of Matariki. Now, not all tribes have 9 names. And I think it's important to realize that the version of Matariki that I am telling you and talking to you about today is the version that I understand through my own research and knowledge that was handed down to me. It is not the only version. And Matariki is not the only star that marks the new year, and I think that's really important. Other tribes use other markers to identify the new year, puanga in particular, or Rigel. Others look to the setting of rehua while puanga is rising. Others look even to atutahi or canopus to mark when they begin their New Year celebrations. So there are regional and tribal differences, even with the narratives of the origins of the name, even how many stars in the cluster. So this is Rangi's version that I'm giving you today, based on how I understand the system to work and my knowledge base. And I want to make that very clear that I think it's important that while we look to celebrate Matariki and the Maori New Year, we also look to encompass all of the regional and diverse and richness that exists within our different tribal versions of Matariki and of the New Year. I have 9 names in my cluster. These are the 9 stars that exist within Te Kāhui o Matariki, or the cluster of Matariki. Now, one of the other important elements that I think it's really important for us to understand is the origins of the name. As I showed in that clip earlier on, the name is Ngā Mata o Te Ariki Tāwhiri Mātea, meaning the eyes of the god Tāwhiri Mātea, where he pulled his eyes out and crushed them in his hands and threw them to the sky, and they stuck to his father's chest. And the name, quite often we do this, all peoples do this, and Māori do this, we truncate names and we shorten names, and they become Matariki, the eyes of the god or the eyes of the chief, which is again becomes shortened to Matariki. There are places in Aotearoa where they still talk about Matariki being the name of the cluster. One of the common narratives that has appeared has been the idea that Matariki is little eyes. Now, in many, many years of research, I'm yet to find any scrap of evidence that supports the notion that the name of the cluster is little eyes. Māori don't name anything without it having a narrative or a meaning behind the name. Landmarks, mountains, rivers, locations, villages, even people, there is a purpose as to why they will have a name. Matariki has no narrative, has no story, and in fact seems to be a translation by a non-Māori, in particular Alston Best, an early New Zealand ethnographer who saw the word and put mata equals eyes, riki equals little, and little eyes became the narrative that we continue to tell today. And I think that's very important to understand where the origins of a narrative come from and who is telling the story. So this image is an image of the cluster. Here you can see the 9 stars and an artistic interpretation of what they look like or how Māori perceive the stars to be. There is the mother or the central star within Matariki, which is the name, also holds the name Matariki, and around her are her 8 children. Now, each and every one of these children brings a bounty or brings something that is important to us as Māori or us here in Aotearoa that makes our world function. So Matariki is the mother. Her husband or her partner is Rehua, which is the great star Antares within Scorpius, and they have 8 children, and like I said before, every one of them brings a bounty or is the holder of some particular element that makes up our world or makes our world function. And I'm going to go through each and every one of these stars just to give you an overview of the star itself within the cluster and the role it plays. So the eldest star within the cluster is Pohutukawa. Now this is a star that's connected to the dead of the year and carries our dead across the night sky, night after night, month after month. I'll come back to Pohutukawa. The next star is Tipuanuku. Tipu means to grow, anuku in the ground. And this is a star that's connected to all of the bounty or all of the vegetables that we grow in our gardens. Everything that comes out of the soil has an association to Tipuanuku. Next is Tipuarangi, means to grow in the sky. And this has a strong connection to all of the birds that we traditionally harvested and ate throughout the year, and also everything that grows above our heads. Waipunarangi is fresh water, and Waipunarangi is the star that will let you know how healthy your rivers and streams are going to be for the impending year, whether or not there'll be lots of eels, freshwater crayfish and freshwater fish that were caught and harvested throughout the year. And the star that's closely associated to Waipunarangi is Waitāā. Waitāā means salt water and is the star that has a strong association to all of the creatures that are harvested out of the ocean. The next star is Waipunarangi. Waipunarangi means the water that pools in the sky. And this is a star that's associated to the rains of the year. And right beside Waipunarangi is Ururangi. Ururangi is connected to the winds and will let you know how strong the winds are going to be in the impending year. And the last star in the cluster is Hiwei-te-rangi. Hiwei-te-rangi is the star upon which Māori believed would help their wishes come true. So during the rising of Matariki in the correct time, Māori would send their wishes into the sky to Hiwei-te-rangi in particular in the hope that they would. Now if you're looking at this picture here, this image has the stars in particular positions. Now it's not random, there is actually a reason as to why they are there. Matariki is in the center. Her role is well-being and health. So she's associated to well-being and health throughout the year. She holds the cluster in place. She is said to be the kaiwhakahaere, or the conductor of the cluster that guides the cluster across the night sky. Pohutukawa as the next star. We've talked about Pohutukawa. We'll come back to Pohutukawa. You see Tipuanuku and Tipuarangi, female and male. Food from the earth and food from above. They are located beside Matariki. The reason Rangi is above Nuku is because Rangi is always above Papatuanuku. And those two stars are connected to food, so there's no tapu in that part of the cluster, and they're male and female, so there's balance. There you see Waiti and Waitā. Waiti fresh water, Waitā salt water. The reason she is above him is because fresh water always flows down to salt water. They are connected to food, so there's no tapu in that part of the cluster. Above all of the stars is Waipunarangi and Ururangi, rain and wind, male, female, so there's balance again. Why are they above everything else? Because rain and wind comes from above everything else. Now those 6 stars are connected to all of the elements, in particular our environmental elements that impact upon our well-being, where Matariki is centered right in the middle. So there's our major food, places that we get our food and sustenance from, the earth, the sky, in particular the trees or the forest, fresh water and salt water, and also the weather indicators that have a massive impact on our livelihoods and our lives. Then there are the final 2 stars, the eldest, Pohutukawa, and the youngest, Hiwei-te-rangi. Pohutukawa is death, Hiwei-te-rangi is life. One is the old year, one is the new year, one is the end of a cycle, one is the beginning of a cycle. So this whole cluster is in fact a framework or a structure upon which the Māori life and the whole yearly cycle was built. And it was so important, that structure and that framework, that Māori would acknowledge the appearance of Matariki at the right time of the year to signify the beginning of the new year and the end of one year and what had happened in the past, and then moving into a new year with all its promise, all its hope, and all the goodness that the impending season would bring. Now, if you're looking for Matariki, and this is a great example of how you find Matariki, if you're looking east, right at the moment, if you get up really early in the morning and you look east, you'll find Orion's belt, often known as the pot. Māori call that tautoru. Now, if you follow that in a line to the right, you're going to come to the biggest star in the night sky, which is Hine Takurua, the winter maiden. Now, if you follow it to the left, and you follow Orion's belt, or tautoru to the left, you'll come to a pyramid shape in the sky. That is Te Kokotā, that is actually the face of Taurus the bull, and you go just a little bit left, you're going to see Matariki. So that's how you use the sky and the other stars as like road markers in the sky to tell you where Matariki is. Now, Matariki is not only this kind of framework of the world and our environment, but it's also part of this detailed division of time that Māori used. So Māori understood that the sun doesn't rise in the same place day after day. It actually shifts up and down the eastern horizon. So in the winter, it's actually going to rise to the northeast and arc across the sky really in a short arc and set northwest. And in the summertime, it rises southeast and is high in the sky in the middle of the day and sets southwest. And that's why we have long days in the summer, very short days in the winter. So the sun looks like it's moving up and down the horizon throughout the year. And Maori understood this, and this was a major marker of season. And Maori understood this as the sun, who was a man, going between his two wives. One is Hine Takurua, who is the winter maiden, and the other one is Hine Raumati, who is the summer maiden. So he spends half the year with one of his partners and half the year with another partner. And that's the reason why the sun rises in different places. But Maori used the sun as a marker of season. And so in terms of telling time, we looked at the sun, we knew we're in a particular season depending upon where the sun is rising. The next major indicator for time in the system is star. And you can see in this image here, there are a number of stars that are rising before the sun. You can see Tautoru, you can see Matariki in this picture, and I can tell because this is on the eastern horizon just before the sun is rising that we must be in the winter, because these are the winter stars that rise before the sun in the winter months that tell me what month I'm in. So sun gives you season, star gives you month, and also activity. So particular stars that rise in the early morning before the sun will tell you what activity you should be doing. Some are associated to things like gardening, so they know when you see that star, I should be either planting or harvesting my kumara. Some are associated to fishing, so when I see that star in the early morning before the sun rises, I know that it's very close to the time that I should be eeling or catching a particular fish. So sun is season, star is month and activity, and the next major marker is this here. This is the lunar calendar system. And you can see that the lunar calendar system cycles through different phases based on the illumination of the moon. So the moon goes through the cycle where it fluctuates up and down. And I'm going to just let this play through so you can have a look at the different names of the lunar cycles, of the lunar phases. And my lunar month starts with Whiro, or the new moon. So it begins in the new moon, and then it rises up towards the full moon. And so there are different energies and different kind of roles, different things that happen during the various lunar cycles. And I want to just get to this particular cycle here, and I'm going to stop this animation where it gets here. So I've stopped here at the Tangaro Amua phase. Now you would have noticed, as you would have been reading the names of the different phases, that they are often chunked into periods of time. So there are kore. Well, there are a number of kore phases. In this calendar system, I have 3 names for kore. There are a number of tamatea phases. I have 4 names for tamatea, and those are different sections of the lunar calendar system. I also need to tell you that there are many, many different lunar calendar systems throughout the country. I'm not talking about 1 or 2, I mean there are hundreds. So lunar calendar systems are environmentally focused on the region that you come from and the resources that are in your region and the elements that feed into your calendar system. So the Maramataka, or the lunar calendar system, is in essence an environmental calendar system that uses this thing, which is the lunar phases, as a baseline. So as we were talking about before, sun lets you know what season you're in, the rising of the sun. The stars give you month and activity, and what the lunar phases give you is day. And it's a triangulation of those 3 various elements that you're able to tell what day of the year, of the month you are in at that particular time. So as an example, I might see the sun rising between pretty much east, due east. And I know, okay, at this time I'm around autumn, and I will see a star, whānui, that will tell me as it rises in the morning that it's time to harvest my kumara. But I've got to wait for the correct lunar period to tell me the actual day of the month, of the season, where I actually harvest that kumara crop. So it's a triangulation of these various markers. And the same goes for Matariki, and when you should look for Matariki in the night sky. You look for the sun rising in the northeast. And when it rises in the northeast, you know, okay, I'm in winter. Then you look for, there is a twin star called Pipiri. Pipiri is a twin star that comes up early in the morning, tells you that you're in the first month of the Maori year. So you know, this is the period where I should be looking for Matariki. And Matariki quite often is already in the sky. You can see it, but you don't celebrate it or acknowledge it until you're in the correct lunar phase. Because the lunar calendar goes from Whitū, which is a very dark and suspicious time. Whitū, for many tribes, is the god of illness and death and disease. And so it's a low period, and it's not really a time where you would want to be looking for the signs of prosperity for the new year. And it comes up and it goes down the lunar calendar and it rises up to the full moon and it comes down to kore kore. Kore kore, kore means no, and kore kore means hell no. So it's not the best time, but then you get to the most prosperous time of the Maori lunar calendar system, and it begins in the last quarter, which is Tangaroa. These are the days where we celebrate our atua Maori, or our Maori gods that rule over the domains that give us sustenance. Tangaroa, there are 4 nights of Tangaroa in my calendar system, which is the god associated to our waterways. And then from Tangaroa, you go to Tāne, which is the god of the forest. And that night is Otāne, and then you go to the next night, which is Orongo. So we're celebrating the gods that give us our sustenance from our waterways. Tāne, which is the sustenance from the forest, all our produce that we get, the birds and everything else we get out of the forest. And Rongo is the god of the gardens. So we are celebrating and acknowledging Matariki during the period assigned to our deity or our Maori gods of these important parts of our world that sustain us and give us our food. And then from there you get into O Mutu. Mutu means to slow down. Mutu whenua, stop. And then you end your celebrations before you get into Whitū, which is the god of darkness. And so here we are in the first Tangaroa, and I'll show you how the rest of the lunar calendar system goes down and wanes down into Whitū. This is the first night that you should be looking for Matariki in the morning sky. If you don't see it at this period, then you wait for the other gods or the next series of lunar phases so you can acknowledge the rising of Matariki. And there's the first Tangaroa, second Tangaroa, the third, the fourth, there's Tāne, there is Rongo, stop, put the handbrake on, or you'll get into Whitū. So there is a really important reason about acknowledging Matariki as that central part of our timekeeping system. Because what we just talked about, the Maori lunar calendar system, is the traditional system of time that our ancestors followed. So there is a lunar calendar system and lunar calendar systems that were followed universally right across the country. Tribes and regions had their own particular ways of telling time, but they were based around the lunar calendar and also the position of sun and the pre-dawn rising of stars. Now what we follow today is a Gregorian Western solar calendar system. Now, 2 completely different systems of time. The Gregorian calendar system that we follow, which is 365 and a quarter days, that's how long it takes us to go around the sun, 12 months of the year. It follows a 24-hour day, a 7-day week. That is a particular system of time that is built around our precession around the sun. The calendar system of our ancestors was driven by position of sun, star, lunar phases, and all of the other environmental factors that feed into that timekeeping system. There are major differences between these systems of time. One is 365 and a quarter days long. A lunar calendar system is only 354 days long. That's how many lunar phases that you're going to get throughout the year. which means it's 11 days shorter than a solar year. So in 1 year it's 11 days shorter, in 2 years it's 22 days shorter, and in 3 years it's 33 days shorter than a solar calendar system. Now you might think, so what? Well, it's really important, because what happens is if you don't reconcile your lunar calendar system with the sun, you're going to get out of sync. And your months that you associate to the summer, you'll be celebrating those in the winter because of the 33-day slippage every 3 years. Maori understood this, and they had a technique that they would apply every 3 or so years, where they would insert an extra month into the calendar system. And it's to do with the visibility of Matariki, and I want to explain this. This image that you can see, this image that I've put up here, is Matariki rising in year 1. So you see the sun is really low, Matariki's high in the sky, you'll be in the correct lunar phase, which is tangaroa, of the correct lunar month, which is pipiri. You'll be in the right position, you'll celebrate Matariki. Awesome. Have a great Matariki celebration. And then what happens is the next year, it's going to be in this position. Matariki is lower in the sky, the sun is a lot closer. Now it's still visible, you can still see the position of the sun, which gives you season, the right star, which is giving you month. You'll be in your tangaroa lunar phase, which is giving you the correct day. See Matariki, celebrate your new year. But the year following the second year, the third year, this will happen. The sun will be too close to Matariki and it won't be visible because of the slippage of time. And so you're in the correct lunar month and you're in the correct lunar phase, but you can't see Matariki. And so instead of panicking and wondering what you do, our ancestors just added in an extra month and the calendar reset itself and your system of time just continues on. Now, it's really important in a Maori calendar system of time where Matariki determines when you add in an extra month that you understand your environment. This environmentally driven system of time, we're universal right across the world. This is how people told time, both northern and southern hemispheres. We all told time that is built around the changes in the environment. Yes, star, sun, moon, but also the flowering of plants, the migration of birds, the spawning of different creatures, butterflies, insects, they all feed into our timekeeping system. The changes in weather, it all feeds in. But what we've done is we've now converted the entire world to a universal calendar system that only follows the sun. So we pretty much let others dictate to us when we're telling time or what the time is. We no longer pay attention to lunar phase for the most part, or position of sun, or we no longer pay attention to our environment. We just follow this single calendar system. And while it's a really good way of telling time, what it has done, it's severed this deep and intrinsic connection that we as humans and all creatures have to our environment. And we seem to operate externally from it, and we tell time and understand time as this procession of seconds, minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, years, and so on. That's how we tell time now, and it's really important when you're following a lunar calendar system that's lunar, stellar, solar, that we understand how important it is to reconnect to the environment. This is an image of what I'm meaning about Matariki too close to the sun. This was last year. So last year, or the year we're in at the moment actually, from a Maori calendar system, is a 13th month year. And this was Matariki rising in the correct lunar phase. Now you can see the stars of Matariki in here because it was taken with a camera. But with your naked eye, you couldn't see it because it was too close to the sun. So we added in an extra month, and we're following the month, or the lunar month at the moment, and we are coming towards the end of the last month of the Maori year, which means in our next lunar month, we're actually going to be in the first month where we will see Matariki rise in the correct lunar phase. So this photo, I wanted to put this photo up along with this quote. In this photo, you can see to the right-hand side, the 3 stars of Orion's belt, or Tautoru. And if you go left, you'll see a little pyramid right in the middle of that photo, just above the hills. that is te kokota, and you go left again, you can see Matariki. And there's a quote here, tirohi atu a Matariki, kua noho i ngā puke o tautoru, kua mōhi o tātou, ko ia te kairuri o te tau tahi tahi ki a pipiri. Or translated, behold Pleiades, rising upon the swell of Orion's belt. So one of the ideas is Orion's belt actually pushes Matariki out of the ocean, so it appears above the horizon. For we know Matariki measures the year during the first month of pipiri. So up into the top left of that image, you'll see two stars, one above the other. Those two stars are pipiri and ruhanui. Those two stars are a prime example of the stars that mark the month of the year. So when I see those stars in that image, I know the sun's just about to rise. I know I'm in the correct season. There I can see those two stars of pipiri. I know I'm in the right month. Matariki is rising. That is the correct time to celebrate the Maori New Year, and that was taken during the lunar phase of Tangaroa. So that was that triangulation of all of those elements coming together to mark the beginning of the Maori year. Now I want to come back to talk about Pohutukawa, or the star that guides our dead across the night sky, night after night, month after month. And here in this image you'll see Matariki sitting at the front of this massive canoe. Tautoru is there at the back of the canoe. This canoe is called Te Waka o Rangi. This canoe is captained by a man called Taramainuku, who is the owner of this massive cosmic net. And Taramainuku is said to be in the sky for 11 months of the year. So for most of the year, you'll see this constellation in the sky. Now when the sun sets, Taramainuku drops his net to the earth and trawls for all of the souls of the people that have died during that day. And as the sun rises, he hauls them up to the sky and takes the spirits of the people that have died and hangs them off the back of the canoe in a place called Te Hao o Rua. Now you can see on that image, there they are hanging like the feathers dangling down from the back of the canoe. And the spirits of people hang there night after night, month after month throughout the year. Now in the month of Haratua, which is about May, June, that canoe actually sets into the western sky. Matariki sets with the sun, taking our departed or the spirits to the underworld to be prepared. And so that's actually in the lunar phase of Tangaroa, when the sun is setting next to Matariki, those our dead of the year actually go to the underworld to be prepared, and we wait for a month while Matariki is not visible for this waka to appear again on the eastern horizon before the sun rises in the correct lunar phase of Tangaroa. And it's at that moment that we understand that Taramainuku collects the dead off the back of the canoe and casts them, their spirits, into the sky to become stars against the chest of Ranginui for eternity. And so the stars are often understood to be our ancestors above us at all times, and we're always connected to them. It's also a moment where we release kind of the bonds we have to our dead that we've carried throughout the year, and we release them, and their spirits become stars. And Maori have a saying, kua whetū rangi hia koe, you have now become a star. And here is an image of the canoe setting into the western sky in the correct phase of Tangaroa during Haratua. And if you have a look at this, there is the sun. Right beside the sun is Matariki. You're not going to be able to see Matariki, it's too close to the sun. But you can tell by the lunar phase and the lunar month and the position of the rest of the canoe that the canoe has set. And we farewell our dead. And a month later, we look east. And it appears like this. There is the lunar phase of Tangaroa, and there is the canoe rising in the east, and we farewell our dead and believe that they're cast out as stars, and then the sun rises, opening our new year. And this is a very, very important part of the Matariki celebrations, remembering those who have passed. And Pohutukawa is the star that leads the dead across the night sky, night after night, month after month. And so this period is called Te Mātahi o Te Tau, or the Maori New Year. And in this image you can see The bright thing up the top, that's actually the moon. That's the correct lunar phase of Tangaroa. Straight below the moon, there are 2 stars. That is pipiri, so I know I'm in the right month. The moon gives me day. The stars give me month. I can see the sun's rising there, so that gives me season. And I can see that canoe rising early in the morning, and I know that's the moment where Māori believe that the dead of the year are being farewelled and becoming stars in the night sky. And it also begins the ceremony, and the ceremony is called whāngai te hautapu. Now, a hautapu is a particular food source that Māori traditionally fed to their deity. And in the time of Matariki, what they would do is they would go out to the environment and collect food that are associated to the different stars in the cluster of Matariki. So they would get a kumara from the gardens for Tipuanuku, and they would catch a bird for Tipuarangi, for the forest and for the trees. They would catch an eel or a freshwater fish for Waiū, and they would go to the ocean and get mussels or pepes or a fish for Waiū. And they would climb up on top of a hill and they would make a ground oven or an earth oven, heat the stones and put the food into the ground oven and cover it up. Then when Matariki was in the correct phase, the moon's in the correct phase, during that Matariki period, as we just showed you, when it was rising, the canoe's rising, they would start a series of incantations or karakia. Now they would karakia to Pohutukawa, to the dead of the year. They would call out the names of the dead of the year, and they would farewell the dead to become stars in the sky. They would also read Matariki, and by the way it appears, if it's bright and spread far apart, it's a sign that you're going to have a good year. If it's close together, it means it's going to be not as productive. But if the different stars of Matariki appeared, like Tipuanuku might be really bright, you know it's going to be a great year for planting your gardens. But Waiū might not be as bright, so you know that the fish in the ocean might not be as good as they were in previous seasons. So they would look for these signs and indicators of the impending season. Then the last thing of the ceremony is they take the top off the oven and the steam rises into the sky to feed Matariki. And that happens because it's a symbolic feeding of Matariki. You're taking food and giving back to the environment. You're saying, thank you, fresh water, for all that you've given me this year. Thank you, salt water, for all that you've given me this year. Thank you to the earth, and thank you to the forest, thank you to the trees. And you honor and acknowledge the environment, and you feed it. And you would place these food items, this hautapu, on an altar, and they would conduct incantations to the stars and to the environment to say thank you for everything that we've received from the environment throughout the year. And this is how it will rise. There you see Matariki right there coming up just as the sun follows it, opening our new year, opening te mātahi o te tau. So, what's the future of Matariki? Yeah, great question. What is the future of Matariki? Well, many of you will already know that as of next year, 2022, Matariki is going to become a public holiday. It's been something that's been talked about from a number of areas for many years. And in this, I guess in the past few years, there's been some real traction about creating Matariki or assigning an actual holiday to Matariki. Now, the traditional celebration period of Matariki lasted for a number of days, but we're only getting one day off for the Matariki holiday. And this holiday is actually being put together by an expert panel who are known as the Matariki Advisory Committee. It has 7 members. There is Dr Rangi from Taranaki, Hoturo Kerr, Hoturo is from Tainui, Dr Pauline Harris from Ngāti Kahungunu. She is a astrophysicist. I should have said before, Whetū is a ocean-going an expert and navigator on double-hulled canoes. He's actually a water expert. Ruakere is an expert in in Puanga, which is another star that marks the new year. There is Victoria Campbell from Ngaitahu, who is also a practitioner of Maori star law. Jack Thatcher, who is another ocean-going navigator and an expert from the Tauranga Moana region. And we have our lunar calendar expert, Rereata Makiha, from the far north and also from Te Arawa. And the other person on the advisory committee is me. So I'm the chairman of this committee, and collectively we've understood that there are tribal and regional variations about how you mark the year and what are the markers and how we celebrate what Matariki or what the Maori New Year is. But when we set aside the differences, we actually found that for the most part, there are so many more similarities about when the Maori New Year is marked. It's done in the winter. It aligns with a particular rising of a particular star. It aligns with the rising of the sun, and also a particular lunar phase. And we talked about the different readings and the different ideas, and we came together to realize we're fairly much in around the same position of time, the same ballpark, but it was the tangaro or pipiri method that we felt was the most appropriate and the easiest to mark year after year for the next 30 years. And that's how, as a collective, we've come to the decision about when to celebrate our Maori New Year and when to celebrate Matariki. And so as a collective, we've landed upon the system that I've just mentioned, tangaroa, that lunar phase, of pipiri or pipiri, which is the lunar month. And we have marked out the Friday that's closest to that astronomical date to have a holiday. Now, that doesn't mean that that's when you need to go out and celebrate your regional or tribal or traditional Matariki New Year celebration. What it is this is a date that we've marked out for our national holiday to acknowledge Matariki. Bearing in mind that every single other celebration that we have has been something that's been imported from the other side of the world. So Christmas, New Year in the summer, Easter, Labor Day, Queen's birthday, these are, for the most part, introduced celebrations and ceremonies. This here, Matariki, is driven from a Maori understanding and is unique to where we are in the world and who we are today. So this group has identified the dates that will be announced really soon for the next 30 years, and this is a methodology that we applied to come to those dates. So it will be a Friday closest to the tangaro period of the correct lunar month, and it'll shift. And you'll be saying, wow, it's going to shift. Well, it'll be pretty much the same as Easter, because the Easter holiday is actually based on a lunar calendar system, and that is the reason why it shifts up and down our Gregorian solar calendar system. And Matariki will be the same. It will be when it's visible in the correct lunar phase of the correct lunar month, and then we'll just look to Friday ice it, and it'll be the closest Friday to that period, and that's when we're going to mark our Matariki celebration and holiday as a nation. So these last collection of slides I want to show you is a Maori calendar system that has recently been developed that is connected and associated with sun, star activity and moon. And this is called Te Tautoru Nui o Matariki, or the 3-year cycle of Matariki. This is a 3-year cycle that uses Matariki as the indicator of when the year begins and when an extra month is added into the cycle across a 3-year period. So what it does, this calendar system, is it uses the rising of sun and the star that appears in the sky in the east before the sun comes up to give you month. So that month, there you have Te Tahi o Pipiri, the first of Pipiri, or the first month of the Maori year, and it's associated, one of its associated activities is the harvesting of lamprey, or the kangakanga, or korokoro to some, Te Rua o Takurua, which is a month later, which is a star of Sirius. This month is also known as Hongongoi, and it rises to the other side of the sun during this month. And it is a time when the moki, or that fish, was caught out in the ocean. Te toruhere o pipiri, which is another star that rises before the sun in the third month, and that's when the clematis, or the flower, actually comes into bloom. And that's one of the activities of that month. Te whā o mahuru rises a month later, and that's when the shining cuckoo returns to Aotearoa from the other parts of the Pacific and lays its eggs. And it's also the month where Maori would start gardening, and there you have a ko, or a Maori planting instrument that was used at this time of the year. Te rima o kōpū. Kōpū is the planet Venus. That marks the 5th month for some people, and it is when we used to harvest the tikoko, or the cabbage tree, which was eaten during that time. Te ono whitia no, it's in Leo. This is the period when the kanai, or the mullet, would be seen on the surface of the ocean, and it was caught during this period as well. Te whitu o hakihea is we're in the summer period now. This is December, January, and this is when the Pohutukawa starts to bloom. Te waru o rehua. Rehua is the great star Antares. It is also the time when you'll hear the cicada, or the kihi calling, and telling you that you're in the middle of summer. Te iwo ruhi. Ruhi is another star, really, really close to rehua, and that's when you will see the anuhe, or the hawk moth, caterpillar, attacking your kumara gardens and eating all of the leaves. Te ngahuru o Poutu te rangi is when the long-tailed cuckoo leaves Aotearoa and heads back to the Pacific. This is the kwekweā bird. It's also the time when you begin to harvest your kumara. Te ngahuru mā tahi o paenga whawha. It's when you take your kumara and put it in your storage house. Te ngahuru mā rua o Hakiharatua, which is the last month of the Maori year, which we're in at the moment. And this was actually a period where they used to trap and catch the kiore, or the bush rat, as a food source. And I don't want you to think that's the same as a Norwegian or the rat that you'll find in the sewers. These were mice that ate fruits out of the bush, and they were caught, and they were a food source in traditional times. And then you come back to Pipiri and Ruhanui. So this is this calendar system with all of the stars. Here are all of the related activities, and this calendar system has a dial that you can actually follow from the new moon at the bottom all the way up to the full moon and back to the new moon, so you can tell your day. And then as you go through your different months, it points to your different stars that mark out a month and activity, and it moves through to the different stars and activities throughout the Maori year, following a lunar, stellar, solar system of time. And that's a calendar system, and that fairly much brings to end our presentation today. I hope that's been helpful and enjoyable for you that have joined on, as we're very, very close to the rising of Matariki in the correct lunar phase, which is the 2nd of July. That's the first tangaroa or pipiri. That's when you'll be able to go outside and see pipiri in the sky, tangaroa lunar phase in the sky, and you'll see Matariki rising in the east. Now, if you don't see it because of weather in the first tangaroa, you just wait for the other tangaroas and even into Otane Orongo to get a glimpse of Matariki, to let you know how your new year is going to be and how the rest of your year is going to be. So I'm going to actually invite someone up to talk about the questions that have been posed online, and I'm going to attempt to answer them. The questions have been clumped into, because there's a lot of feedback coming through, various particular questions, and so I'm going to answer those as part of this seminar. So I'm going to invite Wawaro up, and she has grouped various themes and comments into major questions that she's going to ask me, and hopefully I'm able to answer some of the thoughts or questions or ideas that you have. Haro mai, Wawaro.
Tēnā koe. Kia ora tātou. Well, we might just crack into it. Yeah. So the first question that we've got here is Kayako are asking what's the best way to do Matariki each year. So is there anything in particular that you'd recommend as your go-to Matariki kaupapa?
Pai tēnā pātai. So that's a great question. If I can say to kaiako, really, Matariki is built around three major elements, which is remembering the past, celebrating the present, that includes food and festivities and activities, and acknowledging the future, or trying to plan for the future. And I think any kind of activities that you can build around those three major themes is really, really good.
Tēnā pai. That might have covered the next question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, because some of us are joining the conversation around Matariki for the first time. And it's about people wanting to know where they might start. So maybe 3 or 4 things that where people might start to learn about Matariki, what they should be learning, and where they should look for that information.
Again, great question. There are a number of places that I would go to straight away to find some information around Matariki. There are some websites like Living by the Stars, which I think is a good place to start. There's some really cool resources that have come out from Te Wānanga o Aotearoa in the last few years, and in particular this year. They've got a massive Matariki push, and there's actually a booklet that they've produced that tells you how you can actually go through a Matariki celebration and an event that you can create just for a whānau even, or for a classroom, or for a community group, or for an organisation. So I would go to those places and look for those resources because I think they're really, really helpful.
Cool, ka pai. This one might be a little bit harder, might take you a little bit more time. What informs a localised maramataka?
There's not one maramataka that follow we universally follow. So I come from a tribe that's alpine, inland, mountainous, and so our environmental indicators, our flora and fauna is quite different to people that live down on the coast. The east coast and the west coast can be quite different in terms of tides, in terms of their timing. There are, the bottom of the South Island and the top of the North Island, we just can't grow the same kinds of foods, and things grow differently. All of those factors feed in. So it's the astronomical bodies are the same. Now, one of the things that people say is, we can't see that star from here. That's just not true. We're not big enough as a landmass not to have these massive variations in visibility. You'll actually see those same stars around that period of time. But because the lunar phase will be the same phase right across the country. It'll just have different names or different associations depending upon what is in your environment. So that's the major factor. Location and the environmental factors of that location will feed into your calendar system.
Tēnā pai. So, and you talked about solar versus lunar calendar systems, and here and around the world. What are some of the specific benefits that might come from following the concept of maramataka Māori?
When you follow a maramataka Māori, it forces you to connect to your environment. You can't just, say, it's this moon phase. You've actually got to understand how that moon phase connects to that pre-dawn rising star, connects to position of sun, influences when you plant, when you harvest, when you do activities, what's a high energy day, low energy day. It's funny because the major difference for me between a lunar calendar and a solar calendar is in the solar calendar, we dictate to the environment when we're ready. So we celebrate Christmas 25th of December, regardless of what lunar phase it is, regardless of what's happening in the environment, regardless of anything else other than following that linear numerical system of time. Whereas if you follow a lunar calendar system, it's actually the environment that tells you when it's ready, and you just got to fit in. So you say, I know that we're close to the eels running, but they'll run when they're ready, and you just have to be ready. So it's a different understanding of we telling the environment we're ready now, and the environment saying no, this is your time.
But it's doable.
It's doable, absolutely.
Ka wai. So the interest in celebrating Matariki grows leading into rising and during the Matariki period. What do you think we can do outside of that time, outside of the leading into rising and during the Matariki period, to acknowledge and to celebrate Matariki?
before Matariki rises, right, and this whole period of the winter months is the period of relaxation and staying home and spending time with your family. See, we've completely flipped our calendar systems. We're not meant to be running around crazy trying to do everything in the winter and then trying to have the summer off. The summer is actually the time of work for our ancestors because you had long days. It's when you had to till your gardens, go hunting, you prepare yourself. And in the winter is when you actually celebrate and you feast and you kind of put on a bit of weight and you spend time with one another. But because we've tried to sync ourselves in with a solar calendar system from the other side of the planet, right? We're trying to say holiday in summer and we work really hard in the winter when we get colds and we get unwell. And, you know, it's really trying to change our mindsets of when it's appropriate to do something. And it's the environment saying, well, you can't plant anything because the ground's hard and frozen. Not a lot of animals around because they've all flown back to the other side of the, you know, other parts of the Pacific. It's cold, the nights are long, the days are only short, so just chill, slow down, relax. I think by sinking into the natural rhythms of the environment, there's so much benefits. Apart from that, there are a lot of cultural learnings and language that come out of understanding the cycles of the environment and the lunar phases and the, you know, and how to really adjust yourself to be part of that environmental system.
What's one of the practical things that you do that says that you're aligning yourself with the Maramataka? Just
being aware of what lunar phase you're in at any time. You know, it's basic, and actually what lunar month you're in. So it's one thing to know what phase you're in. And people ask me all of the time, what phase are we in? And I say, go outside and look up. You know, actually sync yourself, actually know when your moon is rising and understand why sometimes the moon's in the sky in the middle of the day and sometimes it's at night time. So the moon doesn't follow our 24-hour cycle. We think, oh, today's moon phase is, no, it's that moon phase when the moon rises. So you've actually got to start reading it and knowing what lunar month you're in. And also just one of the big things about Matariki is its focus on the environment and our ecology. And it's about protecting it. You know, hopefully when we think about what we can do for Matariki, well, how about we do things like clean up waterways, clean up the ocean, plant trees, get involved in pest eradication, set traps for possums and rats and stoats and all of those things, and really give back to our environment. And that's what it's about, such an important part of the celebration. Instead of letting off fireworks, you know, that actually pollute the environment, right? Pollute the night sky with light pollution, but then they all fall back down onto the earth. And if it's on a barge in the middle of the harbour, then that all of the things that blow up, they've got to land somewhere, right? And they wash it up onto the shore. So it's about, instead of doing that, maybe we think about, okay, I'm going to set up a wetland. I'm going to plant harakeke, whatever.
Tēnā pai. Yeah. So
You had another question there,
I
didn't
had
you?
another question.
Ask away.
No, I'm going to stick to the questions that our people have asked. So some things about how, I think you've already touched on some of them already, but celebrating Matariki in our homes. And I think that more and more we're learning how to celebrate Matariki in kura and in schools, and we're doing, and I think that, and I see it in my own children, and you probably see it in, you know, in the places that you visit and in the babies that you engage with. But I think people are wanting to know how they might celebrate at home. And is there anything else you might be able to add when we know Kai?
I think it's dangerous sometimes to tell anyone how they should celebrate anything, right? Because not all of us celebrate Easter the same way or Christmas the same way, and you know. But I think as long as you're following those major themes of, you know, take time to reflect on those that we've lost along the way. That's a massive part of Matariki, you know, and even about sitting around and talking about those that we, you know, who made us who we are, or those who have passed on that have had an impact on us. That's what I always have. That's my first thought. Even as a whānau, when we get together for Matariki, I think about, those that are no longer here, and what would they think about what we're doing or what we've done. 2 is definitely trying to find a way to celebrate. Food's so important, the food, but and so just to feast together and spend time in rare reflection, but also have fun. Have fun with one another, play games, spend time relaxing, sleep in, eat too much. It is that season. And then I would think about, okay, so for this year, what am I going to do? What are my goals? What are my resolutions? Setting in a plan to reach those goals. That's what I'd focus on.
Tēnā pai. As one of the members of that the Matariki Ministerial Advisory Group, has you thinking about the process for deciding on what the holiday will look like next year, or what day will be chosen, and you're having to consider all factors that determine that. And for the next, how many, 30?
30 years.
30 years. Is there anything you can talk to us about that process that you've that you and our other Miki Mātanga, Mātanga o te rāropu, anything else that you can talk to us about that process that's possibly been challenging as well as really positive?
Well, first of all, when we first were looking at the dates, I tried to make it as close to my birthday as possible. But
that means you don't get a birthday celebration and a Matariki celebration.
Well, Matariki doesn't rise in December, so I had to think of something. And us know we because there are so many regional and tribal variations with time, and the whole universalization of a single way to do something is a very non-Maori way of understanding the world, and it's relative to who you are, to where you are. But we had a look at the commonalities between the approaches. It was in winter, it's aligned with where the sun is and where a star is at a particular time, and a lunar phase. And we pretty quickly came to the methodology that we all thought that was the most appropriate methodology for what we're doing. And not only with the timing, but also we really, really quickly decided upon the major themes. Like we talked about the 3 major themes, past, present and future. But there are values that underpin those. And values of Matariki, and this is why it's so cool. It's about sharing and collectivity, coming together. It's about the environment and giving back to the environment and being thankful, winding down, just, okay, stop, have a rest, breathe for a couple of weeks, just get through and shake off all of the difficulties and all of the stresses of the year and reset yourself. So it is about aroha and manaakitanga and kai and whanaungatanga and all of those good things that make people who they are, the best things that make us who we are. So I'm hoping that regardless of what we do, those values underpin everything that we do with Matariki.
And part of it is that, I think part of the kōrero is around the significance of having a day that's been determined by Mātauranga Māori.
Yeah.
Those conversations, you having those conversations?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, what we as in the discussion in the seminar today, we're talking about how all of the holidays that we celebrate are imported from the other side of the world. This Matariki is so cool because it is informed by Mātauranga Māori. It is unique, the way we do it, to where we are in the world. But it also has the potential to play this role in our modern society of being a way of forging and really affirming our identity and our place in the world. Because as Māori, we're saying, here's something that we're willing to share with the rest of the country in a way that can help us unite. Because Matariki, hunganui, te Matariki e āroana means the coming together of the cluster. Now, all of the different stars, they're all stars, but they all have different personas or purposes or reasons, but they cluster together as one in the sky at this time of the year to really tell us about the prosperity of a new season. And I'm hoping that that's what we do around Matariki is, regardless of where we come from, we can cluster together under those real values that unite us in the hope that there's a more prosperous and bright future for us. So I think that analogy for me is so crucial, and it's built on Mātauranga Māori.
And prosperity, and I'm thinking that might lead us into the next question, and where to from here, kind of, in terms of koko rangi Māori, not necessarily, not the business of, but taking that mātauranga of kōkorangi Māori, and where are we taking it to?
There is a resurgence of that knowledge base. There's Mataka going on right around the country, which is awesome. There are people becoming involved in the space. Even companies are trying to operationalize themselves around the changing environment, around the stars, around the lunar phases. Health organizations, actually commercial businesses are looking to meet around the best times according to the lunar calendar system. I think it's time that we really formalize the establishment of some type of institution or some place that can be seen as a teaching and a housing space for traditional mātauranga Māori around astronomy, kōkorangi, like an institute, and can teach the next generation of Māori astronomer that can come to a single point and learn this knowledge and then go back into their own communities and be the lead in their own space. Because traditionally, there were tohunga kōkorangi right across the country, all regions. And as that knowledge base was lost, now we're just starting to pull it all back together again. And I think there is a need for a central point at this time and then it to be disseminated back out again.
Tēnā pai. And I think that that's actually us. We've run out of time for these questions. But there will be people who can respond to other questions that have come up, either now or post. Anā reira, e mihi ana ki a koe. Koe anō, mau pēr tātou e whakakapi.
Nō reira, e te iwi, tēnā koutou I tūhono mai ki te kaupapa I tēnei rā, kanui taku mihi kia koutou o tī rā ki te hunga, koutou I manaaki, I tēnei kauhawa tātou. So just a big thank you for joining in. A big thank you to everyone involved, the supporters, the sponsors for making this seminar happen, and I hope you enjoy yourself this Matariki. Mānawa mai e te putanga Matariki, tēnā tātou katoa.